Hey everyone, welcome back to all my listeners. This is episode 12 in season 16. Today is Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. My name is Sonal Patel, and this is the Paint the Medical Picture podcast series. All right, everybody, I hope you guys are having a wonderful third week of November. Yeah, I'm counting down because the very last week contains Thanksgiving. So I know you guys are all preparing for recipes, cooking, getting your house situated, cleaning up, getting out cozy blankets and pillows, all the fineries that the holidays require, right? And I don't know if you're like me, but I refuse to enjoy those Christmas decorations right now. I really prefer all of my seasons and holidays to be celebrated one by one by one. So, I was crushed to see all the Thanksgiving stuff up in stores before Halloween even happened, right? So, and now the same thing has happened the day after Halloween. Everything was taken down and Christmas went up in stores. Christmas. So they skipped Thanksgiving completely, as usual. So I'm one of those girls that I just do not like Christmas things up before Thanksgiving even happens. I like Christmas in December. You can start decorating then. That's just my 2 cents and my preference. I know lots of people love that Christmas tree up in the whole month of November as well. And yes, of course, their homes look gorgeous. And yes, the tree-lined streets and lights look beautiful in downtown Chicago and downtown Manhattan, everywhere, right? It does look gorgeous, but just my personal thing. Anyways, you guys, I hope everybody is doing really, really well. This will be a shorter and sweeter episode. And I really wanted to focus today's Newsworthy on what's going on in RAC Audits in 2025. And I'm going to piggyback off of that Newsworthy in my Trusty tip. And I'm going to give you guys a couple of my tips for specific items in those RAC audits and what our providers and organizations need to be aware of if they're ever caught up in that type of a RAC audit. And of course, I'm going to go ahead and close out and round out today's episode with another remarkable quote on resilience from Isabel Allende. All right, you guys, let's get into it. So in today's Newsworthy, now that the government has finally opened up after 43 days of a shutdown, be aware that those RAC audits from the recovery audit contractors, those audits will continue once again. Now, remember, back in August, there were 14 new items that were added to the RAC work list. Now, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, that's our CMS, they approved all of these audit topics before our RACs can begin conducting audit reviews to identify improper Medicare payments. Now, by approving these 14 new audit topics, CMS has then authorized the RAC contractors to review a new universe of issues. So things that have not been looked at before. So it's a new universe of issues. Some reviews are designated as automated, others as complex. And I'm going to go over these 14 here in a second. Now, RACs cannot audit outside their approved topic areas. So be aware of that as well. Now, topics are typically based on data analysis showing high error rates and patterns of incorrect billing. Now, here are the 14 new items that were added to the RAC work list in August 2025. And of course, they've been working hard on it. Then the government shut down. Now it's reopened again. So they will resume work on this in the days ahead. All right. So those 14 items include, number one, destruction of pre-malignant lesions, excessive units. That is an automated review type, and it's going to affect our provider types in the professional services. So again, all of the MACs are going to be affected. The next issue is for evaluation and management, same day as admission to a nursing facility, unbundling. This is also an automated review type, and it will affect provider types for professional services. All MACs are affected. The next one is for your vitamin D assay testing, medical necessity and documentation requirements. That's the issue. This will be a review type that is complex. The provider types that are at issue are inpatient hospital and outpatient hospital. Then we can move on. Another issue that they've identified is for computerized tomography, coronary angiography, medical necessity, and documentation requirements. This will, of course, be complex. This is for the outpatient hospital setting. We can move on to annual wellness visits, incorrect coding. This will be a complex type of review. This will affect our professional services in all of our MACs. We can move on to immunosuppressive drugs, medical necessity and documentation requirements. This will be a complex review type, and this will affect our DME physicians and our DME suppliers in all DME MAC jurisdictions. We can move on. Spinal cord neurostimulation, medical necessity and documentation requirements. This will be a complex review that will affect your ambulatory surgical centers, your ASCs, as well as outpatient hospitals and professional services. Again, all MACs are affected. Moving on, durable medical equipment rentals, multiple billing within the same month. This will be automated review type, and it will, of course, affect all of our DME physicians and DME suppliers in all DME MACs. Moving on, positive airway pressure devices for treatment of obstructive sleep apnea, medical necessity and documentation requirements. This review type will be complex, and it will affect DME physicians and DME suppliers in all of our DME MAC jurisdictions. Moving on, cardiac pacemaker, medical necessity and documentation requirements. This review type will be complex, and it affects ambulatory surgical centers, ASCs, as well as the outpatient hospitals. All of our MACs are affected. Moving on, ventilators, medical necessity and documentation requirements. This review type will be complex. It affects our DME physicians and DME suppliers. Again, all DME MAC jurisdictions are affected. Moving on, home use of oxygen, medical necessity and documentation requirements. This review type will be complex. It also affects our DME physicians and DME suppliers in all DME MAC jurisdictions. Moving on, modifiers TC and PC, incorrect coding. This will be an automated review type, and it affects our professional services, and all of our MACs are affected. And finally, the 14th item is for monthly capitation payment for end-stage renal disease, 4 or more visits per month. This will be an automated type of review. It affects our professional services, and all MACs are affected. Moving on, it's time for my best practice tips in Trusty Tips. So piggybacking, carrying on from Newsworthy's 14 new RAC items, right? I wanted to give some tips on a couple of the new items. So what are the RACs really looking into when it comes to coding and documentation compliance, right? So for item 0121, for destruction of pre-malignant lesions, excessive units, what are they looking at, right? Remember, this is an automated review and is based on the description of these CPT codes. CPT code 17000 may only be billed once per date of service. CPT code 17003 may only be billed 13 times per date of service. And CPT code 17004 may only be billed once per date of service. If billed in excess of these limits, excess units of CPT codes 17000, 17003, and or 17004 will be recovered, right? That's the job of the RAC auditors, the RAC contractors. They will claw back and recoup those payments that were perhaps already made on your practice. So those affected codes, let me be specific on what their definitions are. So CPT code 17000 is defined as destruction, for example, by laser surgery, electrosurgery, cryosurgery, chemosurgery, or surgical curettement for pre-malignant lesions. For example, that could be called actinic keratoses in documentation, and it is for the first lesion. Moving on, the definition of CPT code 17003 is for destruction, again, by all of those methods that I talked about a moment ago. Pre-malignant lesions, 2nd through 14 lesions each, list separately in addition to the code for the first lesion. So again, that is an add-on code. CPT code 17003 is an add-on code. So the first code has to be billed as CPT code 17000. And then finally, they are going to be looking at CPT code 17004 for destruction, again, by those same methods of destruction that I spoke about a moment ago, for pre-malignant lesions, 15 or more lesions. So we have to be mindful of the units on claim lines, right? On that CMS 1500 claim form. We have to be mindful of how many units we are billing out, and those units have to match the number of lesions in documentation. And how about that hot E&M item on the radar for the RACs in 2025? That item 0132 for evaluation and management same day as admission to a nursing facility, unbundling. Now, this is an automated review that involves the fact that CMS will not pay for an emergency department visit or an office visit E&M service on the same day as a comprehensive nursing facility assessment when both the E&M service and the comprehensive nursing facility assessment are performed by the same physician at a site other than the nursing facility. The E&M service is bundled into the comprehensive nursing facility assessment code. So the E&M service is not separately payable. So they are looking specifically at the CPT codes 99202 through 99215 for those office visits, as well as CPT codes 99281 through 99285 for the emergency department E&M codes. And then finally, also big on the RAC's hit list is annual wellness visits. And that is in our RAC description for 0176, annual wellness visit, incorrect coding. All right, now this is a complex review that involves claims for HCPCS code G0402, which is for our initial preventative physical examination, or IPPE, that may not be billed more than 12 months after the effective date of the beneficiary's first Part B coverage, or more than once in a lifetime. And then claims for HCPCS code G0438, which is for our annual wellness visit, AWVs, those include a personalized prevention plan, a PPPS, initial, and they may not be billed more than once in a lifetime. And then finally, they are looking at claims with HCPCS code G0439 for annual wellness visit. AWV includes a personalized prevention plan, PPPS, subsequent, and it may not be billed within 12 months of G0438 or HCPCS code G0439. And of course, all of the affected HCPCS codes are what I just stated, G0402, G0438, and G0439. All right, so now that we know that the RACs will be back enforcing their audit work list for the remainder of the year, make sure that you and your teams are conducting internal audits on these items if they apply to your practice and your patient populations. It is best to be proactive in compliance and stay ahead of the scrutiny. And finally, I focus season 16 Spark on resilience. I want this 16th season Spark to be filled with our world's thought leaders, writers, artists, philosophers, everyone who inspires us with their statements involving resilience. So in this week's inspiring quote in Spark is from Isabel Allende. We don't even know how strong we are until we are forced to bring that hidden strength forward. Absolutely true, right? This quote is so powerful. This quote reminds us how much strength we have. Just believe it. You are stronger than you know. There is a reservoir of fight that you draw from. I'm happy Isabel Allende's spark still burns brightly and can continue to inspire so very many. All right, you guys, that wraps up today's short and sweet episode. I really hope you got a lot out of the information I presented to you today on the 2025 RAC audits that are being conducted, especially once again, now that the government has opened up. So if you happen to be in the crosshairs, I really think it's a great idea that you conduct those internal reviews monthly, spot check your claims and documentation if these particular service lines affect you and your organization. So it's a great idea to be proactive in compliance. Anyways, you guys, I wish you all a very, very happy rest of your week, and I hope you have a terrific weekend ahead and wrap up your Thanksgiving plans because it'll be here in no time. Anyways, you guys, thank you so much for listening on today's episode. And I hope every week with me brings you closer to helping your providers paint a masterpiece. See you next Wednesday.